like to call this meeting of the Southwest Licking Local School District Board of Education to order. It is Thursday, March 17th, 7 p.m. in the District Board of Education room. I'd like to recognize all of our visitors, both in the room and online, and would ask everyone to join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, this is Ms. Carlis at Watkins Intermediate School. These are my 4th and 5th graders. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Jones, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Engel.
Here.
Mrs. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Ziny.
Here.
Mr. Vincent.
Here.
Mrs. Spindler.
Here. We have a quorum and we will continue. I don't believe we have any public participation tonight, so I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mr. Ziny.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes, that motion passes. Next item is item 2, request to speak on agenda items, Teamsters 413 or Southwest Licking Education Association. All right. Number 3, approval of minutes from the February 17th meeting. I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mr. Ziny.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. The next item is the treasurer's report.
I motion approval of the treasurer's report.
Second.
Mr. Jones?
It's an exciting part of the meeting. Everybody should be jumping in first and second. You get the superintendent part, it's like, oh, golly. So, with the agenda is the executive summary for the month ended February 28, 2022. Fairly routine month, nothing really way out of the expected. Year to date, running receipts about 3% higher than we expected. Our expenditures are about 3% lower than we expected. So we are doing very well and hope that continues for the last 4 months of the fiscal year. I'll be glad to answer any specific questions you have.
Anyone?
Yeah, this fuel price is not going to help things, are they?
So Mr. Brown already came to me, fuel budget's a little low. I said, well, you gotta stop running buses then.
Do we hedge any fuel or anything, like pre-buy, or do we pay as we go?
No, we usually state term contract pricing. But
Okay.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item 5, personnel consent calendar. I believe we can take these either all together or separate.
Motion to approve 5A through H.
Second.
Anything to point out? Any discussion?
I don't think we really have anything substantial. A few, resignations for the coming school year. Next month will be our big hiring month with a lot of people, so nothing out of the ordinary.
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item number 6, business items. Do we need to we probably need to take G out. We could probably motion for all of them, I think, right?
That's up to you. How you want to
And then
handle it,
discuss
all or
them.
some, or one by one?
I motion approval 6A through H.
Second.
Any discussion for any of these?
A is again the second reading of the policy dealing with allowing us, basically spouses and stuff, we can actually purchase services through them if they meet the requirements set forth by the Ethics Commission. B is the fiber ring connection for the new K3 to bring it online to our fiber ring. If you want to talk about baseball or anything, or is there anything to say about it?
I was just going to add to the fiber ring, we're going to actually take that out of the ESSER funds.
Okay.
So it's a nice baseball's trip, spring break trip to Nashville. I don't have anything else about that we can talk about.
And then D is the filing of the proposal transfer territory to Reynoldsburg City Schools. All this does is starts the process. The board approves it, then we file with ODE, and then we start the process. In the meantime, we will continue to negotiate with the city of Reynoldsburg, or Reynoldsburg City Schools, to see if we can get an agreement. That's gonna be the easiest way to get the transfer to go through. There's no guarantee at this process until we have an agreement in place. So, again, it's just the first step, but we have an April 1st deadline. If not, we can't do it again for 2 more years.
We did have a very positive meeting, last meeting with the Reynoldsburg schools.
And
So,
I'd say for those in the audience and those at home, what we're discussing is land that was annexed by the city of Reynoldsburg from Etna Township. And while that land is now in the city of Reynoldsburg, that land still is in Southwest Licking Schools, and that's 750 some homes that they're projecting, and which is why we are seeking out this annexation. So just so everyone knows what's going on.
And I'm glad that it's been successful with working with the
Yes.
schools.
I think
It's-
that based on our last meeting, it was very evident that they feel as if the kids should go to Reynoldsburg. They're Reynoldsburg City Schools. They're closer to their schools than ours. It's just a matter of figuring out what works best for both districts to make it happen. So
Good.
Love the
it was
positive
it was a
news.
good meeting for sure.
That's awesome.
E is basically, again, requesting additional LFI contingency for the high school, middle school renovation project. Just stuff keeps coming faster than we expect. Hopefully, it starts slowing down because we are getting towards the last few months here. But just to be safe, we're down about 125,000. We need to have additional money available just in case. So, F is a special board meeting request for March 31st or 30th. We need to decide a time. Basically, the purpose of that will be to award the contracts for the new tennis courts, the softball fields, and also discuss the alternates regarding the baseball field. Do you have a time that you want to make that meeting?
I can do 3:30 or later.
I'm available whenever.
I would like to do early, actually, if we could, because I have Broadway in Columbus that evening. So if we could do early, that would be great.
Well, I hope so.
Legally, I think we're allowed to still zoom in. So in that case, I could even do I could zoom in at 2:45.
Like,
But I could
don't
be
think
here.
you can vote, though.
like
You can now. They changed the law.
It is till like June 3rd, July 31st.
I mean, like
wasn't allowed
4
to vote
o'clock.
last June.
What works with
They
your
re-upped
kids?
that.
I would have to pick up kids at 4. I could bring them straight.
I mean, 4:30. Could you do that?
I could do 4:30, yeah, absolutely.
4:30 would be good. Is that okay?
That's fine.
4:30 works for me.
Just want to write that
Is
down.
that, Casey, is that okay with you?
Yep, absolutely.
And then H is in lieu of transportation. We approve that every year. Students who meet a certain criteria, and then a lot of them we pay money to the parents for transporting those kids. And you can do what you want with handbooks. Casey, you want to address that? Or?
So we did, for those of you that submitted proposed changes, those were, should have been all taken care of. If there's certain topics you want to talk about, I'm happy with the assistance of Tanya to try to address most of them. Melissa is also here tonight representing the high school in case there are high school things you wanted to talk about. So I pretty much think the floor is open if you have questions or comments or.
I have a comment. With all that's been going on here lately, do we need a committee to look at expulsions and what I discussed earlier about kids being accountable for what they do. I don't know, do we have the right stuff in there? Is it meet the law? I don't know. I just kind of looked through it, and just a question whether we need to have a specialty thing to look at expulsions and those kind of consequences for kids and stuff.
Are you talking like an advisory committee to the
Yeah,
superintendent?
that's what I'm thinking.
Like we do
just
with
to
building
look-
and grounds? And
Yeah, just to look, well, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there just to think about it, so. I mean, have you all looked through expulsions and stuff? Pretty much you're happy with everything? Then I'm good. I'm just bringing it up as a kind of something to talk about. Make sure we have the right stuff in there, that's all. Okay, I'm happy.
Okay.
Hey, what did we decide for a time on the meeting?
4:30.
4:30.
Oh, I missed that, sorry.
I'll send out a meeting notice too, and then I'll have the language in case anybody wants to
Okay.
try to zoom in.
I mean, do you feel that that's necessary?
I mean, I think Roger and I were talking a little bit earlier prior to the meeting just about some of the issues going on in buildings and some of the things we're seeing with students this year and behaviors.
Okay.
I think that student behavior across the United States is at an all-time high. I think we're seeing products of pandemic children. I think if you talk to teachers, they would tell you the kids are vastly different than they were before. I think it's going to take time to fix that. I don't think that's, in all the conversations I have with lots of people, I don't think that's us. It's kids in general. The laws have changed as far as K through 3, and we're very, very limited to what you can suspend kids for now in the elementary buildings. So that makes things a little bit more challenging. As legislation puts more mandates on the schools and teachers, it becomes more challenging on the administration to what exactly they can do with kids. I do think we've had a abnormally high amount of expulsion hearings this school year, but I think that's necessary because I feel as if students are going to make those choices to warrant them to be suspended for 10 days, and whether that's destruction of property or continued vaping or drug use at school, then they should come over and talk to the superintendent and determine whether their appropriate placement is at Watkins High School or somewhere else. So I think that the building administrators are working very hard. I think it's been a challenging year for all teachers and administration, but I think they're doing a good job. I'm not saying it's perfect, but
Well, to me, it kind of dips in the realm of, we don't do the day-to-day operation of the school district, you guys do, but I do think it may be a good idea to just, as a board, or some of us on the board, just be a little more advised as to what's going on so we can kind of know the pulse of the community or,
Sure.
or students. So I would be open to an advisory committee. I don't know that we need to really meet all that often, but I think it's not going to hurt to have one.
yeah.
But that's just where I am.
I think you could probably, and maybe I'm taking this, but I think you could perhaps do that as just an outgrowth of your student services group.
I think so.
You could just do that already, because that's your behaviors, that's your mental health, that's all of those things where you're already addressing a lot of those issues, and so perhaps that you could just do that, and maybe we could do that as part of that group already. So
I mean, and I think you would be very surprised and interested to see that sort of discipline data coming out of the schools, because it is high this year.
I would be interested to see
It would be.
what
So
that
I think
is.
that's, I would agree. I think that's an appropriate place. We could
Casey,
have
what
that
if,
engagement in the student services.
what if we asked for something also on an ongoing basis, maybe even to just be included once a month in our board report with like
As far as discipline?
numbers?
Yeah.
Yep.
Similar to what we get
Yeah,
quarterly
so we
for
know.
some of the other things, just so we're kind of be aware of how much is trends and
Yeah,
whatnot,
where we're at
maybe,
with this.
so we can get excited when they start to go down.
Yes.
Can do that. And then, then maybe the board would have a little bit more of an awareness, especially if you are, hearing things or having conversations, then you would be a little bit more in the know.
Well, see, that's my problem. I have a wife that's a
Right, so
teacher,
you know
and I
this.
hear
Yep.
firsthand, and then so I sort of have a question, are we doing the right thing
Mm-hmm.
to keep these kids in line and punishing them or not punishing them, whatever. Anyway, that's
Restorative
my only,
practices.
what's
Yep.
that?
Restorative practices, that's the term that is used frequently
Oh.
now.
And that's very common in it's used in all buildings, but K through 3 specifically.
Yeah.
So sure, I can add that to the board update, and then we can also
Include that.
put that on the student. I don't know who's on the student
I don't-
services committee offhand, but
I think,
Is it you and I?
is it?
I think
you
it's-
or I or me and someone. I'm on something.
It's either Deb and I or Kathy and I, and I'm not
not me.
100% sure. Candy and Kathy? Yeah, okay.
Let me write
Thank
that
you.
down. I did write it all down in
Yeah.
January, but
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
find those notes.
It's also in the board minutes. Also.
Yeah.
That's where I was heading to before she.
Does anyone have any additional comments, questions about the handbooks?
My only comment is very minor, and I reached out to Ryan to talk about this, and I don't know if it needs to go into handbooks or just on our pages, just to give an idea of when the school zones actually are. Somebody reached out to me saying that they didn't know when school zones were, and it's really not it's not really identifiable in law. It says within the hour of coming and going. So if we could say to parents, identify that our school zone flashing lights will be from 6:40 until 7:30 or whatever, something like that, just so people know.
Yeah, that's
That's a good idea. I only had one comment because in one of the revisions, I saw it was not changed. And it seems like in all of the handbooks, the bus portion starts out with students, and then there's a paragraph at the bottom that starts out with pupil. So I didn't know if we wanted to be consistent and use one or the other.
Which one's it in? Do you recall?
I saw it in the high school one.
Okay.
I saw it in all the books originally, but the high school one, it still had pupil. But I also didn't pay attention to whether or not that was the word we went with instead of student. So I just wanted to double check, and it's very minor. I didn't go back through all 11 handbooks. I just skimmed through for some of the things that I had seen the first time. So that's all I had.
I had two things, and I talked to you about them today. One was with the middle school handbook, the not permitting parents to bring in food. As someone in education, administratively, I understand that, but as a parent, it didn't sit extremely well with me because I feel like, again, we're taking away something from a parent. But then I found out that people are actually Uber Eats and whatnot food in, and that clearly should not happen because that is disruptive to the educational day. But as a parent, if my kid has a birthday, maybe I want to bring them a special lunch. I feel like I should be able to. That was my concern with that. I just felt like perhaps we were infringing upon parental rights. And I know it's minor, but I don't know that you're going to win that PR game. I did not like that piece of it, but.
And kind of what I share with John, it's just a lot for an office with 2 people in there in a middle school or any building of 1,200 kids, and you have parents. It's not as if a child forgets their lunch, and of course, if a parent brings their lunch, they're going to get their lunch. But the fast food and all that kind of stuff coming in and out, and then calling the kids out of class and getting it just it creates some disruption. So that's where it's coming from.
Okay. But the policy read, I was trying to look for it again here. There's so many handbooks this week. The policy, does it say parents cannot bring in lunch? That's what I was just trying to.
I'd have to look at.
I was trying to
didn't
find.
think it did.
It says, any outside lunch deliveries during the school day are prohibited. This includes DoorDash, business deliveries, and parental drop-offs.
I guess my issue was with the word parental drop-off.
And I don't know if we can get some comments.
What?
Can we add in without prior?
Approval by
Approval?
the office?
Uh,
At
quick-
least in parentheses next to the parental piece.
Comment, when I had my double bypass, I lost my medical. I couldn't fly, so I worked for Panera Bread for about 6 months, and I delivered to a lot of schools in the Reynoldsburg area. I'm just, and they loved it. I mean, you know, they could get delivered from Panera Bread, so I don't see the disruption really, but that's just me.
I can definitely see the disruption. I have to pick up my
Yeah.
daughter every Wednesday, and it's crazy in the office with two
Yeah.
people. It's really, that's why I'm thinking maybe if we could have without, with prior approval or something along that lines.
Yeah.
But
I
then
just,
you run into 25 parents calling the office on
Right.
a daily basis, asking if they can bring their kid lunch.
right, but
That's an equal disruption,
Right.
in my opinion. I don't know.
I would agree, but then another disruption would be, as a parent, I would be, if I was told I could not bring my kid McDonald's for their birth, that that doesn't sit well with me. As a parent, I should be able to do that. So,
I'll take a McDonald's.
so I just would like to see the wording worked, and you guys may feel differently. I would just like to see the wording worked differently at the very end. What page was that on, Mrs. Moore?
Let me see if I can find it real quick. It is on page 20.
I guess I just haven't thought about delivering lunch to my kid
I
at
have
school
never
on a
done it.
birthday. That's just not something I would, like, if we're gonna celebrate, we're gonna celebrate outside of the school day for that reason, too, so as not to disrupt the school
Right.
day. So, I mean, I guess for me, I think if it's creating disruption in the office and to teachers, we've obviously got like significant behavior issues going on. We should probably eliminate in as much as we can to keep things rolling smooth. That's just what I think.
I think, you know, parents can find other ways to celebrate special days, bringing flowers and dropping them off as a surprise. I know that's not, I think I read that that's actually not allowed.
No, I think that actually is allowed.
You do have to call though, I
Yeah.
think, but.
You know, put a brownie in the sack lunch in the morning
don't-
or
yeah,
something.
so
maybe.
But see, is that our job to dictate that, though? I don't know that it is, because I think culturally, in some cultures, I mean, the birthday is a huge deal. I mean, I see that quite a bit, and I don't know. If you say a parent can't drop off a lunch, does that mean they can't drop off a bag lunch? I mean, and what's the difference between a bag lunch and a McDonald's lunch? I just see, I don't know. And the first time you make an exception for someone, everyone's going to expect an exception. I just, you know, I don't want to make this a huge deal, but I feel like we're infringing upon the parental right there, and I don't like that. So I don't know.
And I do respectfully disagree with you, John, only because it isn't our job to dictate that as a board, but it's our job to listen to our administrators' recommendations. And if it's causing problems and this is their recommendation, at least that's
Right.
the way I
I
read
would,
it.
I would get that, but do we have data to support that it's a problem? You see what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I guess I would say, I feel like if it was a big enough issue to include in the handbook and include DoorDash and specific places, that it has been a problem. And I would say that I would prefer the administration and the office staff to be dealing with more important things than a lunch delivery. And I think there's a lot of that going on currently, and maybe the climate and culture of schools will change, but right now the way it is, I feel like their plates are pretty full. So if we could take one thing off their plate that, I mean, we do offer school lunch, they can pack a lunch. That would be my recommendation, but again, that's for you guys to
let's say
decide to
this
vote.
year school lunch is free, but next year school lunch may not be free. We don't know.
That's correct, it's actually not going to be free.
Okay, so a kid forgets his lunch, or we can't force them to buy a lunch, but the parent can't bring in a lunch. So
She did clarify that if a kid forgot his lunch, they would allow a parent to bring their forgotten lunch to school.
There's definitely not as exciting or as a disruption as a sack lunch for your Chipotle or your,
Right,
it's just
I mean-
different. I mean, I understand what you're saying, I just, I feel
Okay.
like they have a lot going on, so.
all right, and then my other question, dealt with the high school handbook and valedictorian.
Yeah.
And I see that for the current class and then up through 2025, we continue to do as we're doing now, correct?
Yes.
But in 2026, we will no longer rank kids or have valedictorians. Sure.
Yes, please.
So our recommendation is that we maintain the current valedictorian, salutatorian structure for all of our kids who are currently in the high school. So that beginning with the class of 2026 and beyond, we would eliminate the distinctions of valedictorian and salutatorian. Every student who earns the rank of summa cum laude, which is a 4.0 or higher over 8 semesters, would be recognized as among the summa cum laude at graduation.
Okay.
Melissa,
Yes.
are you done with that? Was
Yeah,
that the,
I-
Melissa, what is the reasoning for not just going ahead and doing that immediately?
So we felt that everybody should know what the rules are when they start high school, so that there are no surprises, and we're not changing the rules in the middle. Our current students they're already in this valedictorian, salutatorian mindset, and so to kind of change that would be unfair in the middle of their high school career. We do believe that moving away from valedictorian, salutatorian is more inclusive, and it allows students to set individual goals for themselves as opposed to competing against each other for those distinctions. Quite frankly, every kid who has a 4.0 or higher after 8 semesters, I think needs recognized. We have consulted with numerous colleges and universities on this issue. They absolutely do not take valedictorian, salutatorian into account. We surveyed 10 different public and private schools, and the 5 that responded, they all said it's not a factor. They look at GPA. They do not even look at class rank. We have looked at schools, other high schools in Licking County and in the surrounding area. In Licking County, 3 out of 7 use Latin honors or do not have a valedictorian, salutatorian as we are proposing. And in nearby districts, 3 of the 5 have a system that is similar to what we are proposing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any more handbook questions?
I just had one more, and
Okay.
this is a dress code question. It's on the actually it's a dress code suggestion on the high school one. You know, we have the no hats, no hoodies, no hats, no hoodies,
Bandanas.
no head covering of any kind. Is there a reason that we could not add no ears and tails to that as well?
The thinking behind the no hats, no hoods, no head coverings is that those things conceal an individual's identity, whereas headbands do not. They actually make the person more distinctive and easier to recognize on camera.
However, those particular things are distracting to the educational process.
I respectfully disagree. But if the board wishes for us to address those, we can certainly do that. But the intent behind the no hats, no hoods is about being able to recognize students on camera.
And I understand that, but we do permit bandanas then.
No,
No.
actually, it says
No.
bandanas
We
of
don't-
any kind, not
Nothing
head
on their heads,
Okay.
but headbands with ears
Are okay.
and tails.
I
Did
don't
you
know
saw
that
my
one.
question about
The
cultural
religious exemptions.
exemptions?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Which I'm assuming is absolutely
Yes,
covered,
absolutely.
correct?
So I guess whatever you have,
Whatever the
you guys
board
feel about that, we'll
could be added to that,
align
correct?
accordingly.
If you can't wear a hat, you should be able to wear that.
So if I were a girl that wanted to wear a headband that has like sparkles on it, I couldn't wear that.
No, a headband,
No,
yeah, I
a
think
headband,
not
yes.
the
I'd say
ears.
a headband with
Some of the
ears.
headbands have ears, and that's part of the decorations
Yeah, and
of
that's
the headband.
correct.
So how are we going to go through every headband that comes through and say that one's okay and that one's not? That's going to cause a lot of problems.
I think if there's a headband that has crap sticking up off of it, then yeah, that's a problem.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion. That's creating conflict and distraction in the educational process
I just think for consistency.
in the middle school and high school.
I'm not sure it's the headband that's creating a conflict.
I would like tails to be included as well, of course, though.
I think it's some of the children that may be wearing these things that are doing stuff in addition to wearing them, from what I understand.
I don't think we should be allowing ears and tails.
Okay.
I'm in a battle right now with bandanas right now in my house with Riley, who's sneaking them and wearing them. So I think, I don't think we should have tails and ears and, what's the stop sign? Why not wear a big nose? Where do we draw the line?
So,
So I think that needs to be added to the handbook. Do you need a motion for that?
no, we could just add it.
No motion?
Well, it's up to, if the majority of the board don't agree, then maybe we should be a motion to make sure it passes.
I think we need, specifically, it needs to talk about, I don't even know if we want to say ears or animal parts or,
Yeah, if that's, do you want animal parts? Do you want ears and tails? I mean, if you want to wear a sparkly headband, have at it if you want to. But yes, I have a problem with ears and tails and noses, And I am all for self-expression. If you want to wear a shirt that's fancy, and if you want to wear pants that are rainbow colored, and if you want to wear pins on your backpack, 100%.
Right.
But I think that we do have to draw, there has to be at least a little bit of a line, just a teeny tiny bit. We don't have, there are virtually no other lines, really, when you walk in the high school. There are really, really not hardly any other lines.
Okay, we'll get it adjusted.
I don't know, you have a majority of the board that agrees to that change.
Do you want us to shake our heads?
Yeah, so I guess that you guys just need to tell us. I've only heard two say yes.
What am I shaking my head to?
No ears
Yeah,
and tails.
That's
like
the
the
issue.
idea?
I don't know what we're.
No ears and tails.
Well,
No ears and
I know,
tails?
but is that really a problem?
It is a thing. The kids who wear
Yes.
them.
yeah.
They are doing
Yes.
that, so.
The way I understood the problem was not that, it was the kids that wore the ears and tails making animal sounds at other children. The fact that they were wearing them, I didn't realize was the problem. It was with the actions they were doing while wearing them. That's the problem. So I don't know if removing the headbands is going to fix that behavior. Do they only do that when they're wearing the headbands, or can they still continue to bark and meow at kids? Because I don't know that.
I don't know, but maybe this will be the first step in
Yeah,
to stop that, maybe. Because I don't think barking at other kids is appropriate either,
Right.
but maybe taking the dog ears off would maybe think you could be not in your dog phase right that minute. I don't know. I don't understand it.
We don't need to be playing with cattails
I'm
at
a-
school.
I'm a almost 50-year-old lady, and I don't get it at all. And I know everybody's like, oh, you're old and you're stupid. But I don't understand it at all. So I'm just trying to throw out the piece of let's not do the ears and tails.
Yeah, and I don't know that we necessarily need to understand it.
Okay.
I just think for the sake of consistency,
Yeah,
if you
I just
can't have
think-
a hood,
Yeah,
which is cultural for some people as well,
correct.
Right.
then
Correct.
I don't understand why
Yeah.
we would, so, I,
You guys fine, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like,
I hear 3 yeses, I mean.
I'm like,
that
if
seems
you
to
can't
be-
wear a hat for Pete's sakes, then why do you got?
I just don't know why you would need a tail or ears on
Yeah.
at school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So was there anything,
So the issue is not to ban the headband, but to ban it and not have whatever they have on it.
Correct. For me, that it's just the ears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
if
I'm
you-
just asking what we're shaking our heads for.
Ears and tails.
Ears and tails, Roger. Ears and tails.
Yeah,
all right. And then the
And that's all.
motion,
Those are the only
There's
things
no
I have.
motion needed.
No.
'cause we
Right.
no, but the motion we have on the floor now is 6A through
Yes.
H,
Correct.
right? Including G?
Yes.
Could we exclude G for now?
Yep, I can make it friendly. I motioned that, didn't I?
You did.
Yes, you did, and Roger said, no,
Did I
and
second
Candy
it?
seconded.
Candy seconded it.
So friendly, just.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So we'll be voting on 6A through
A through F and
F
H.
and H. Okay.
And are we tabling G? Is that what we're doing?
No,
Nobody
I
has
think
said
we
anything
vote on
yet.
it.
Huh?
At this point, then you have to
Okay.
make a separate motion
That's
for
fine.
that.
Yeah.
It's just,
I thought we were waiting for the ears and tails to be added.
No.
My apologies. Okay, are there any additional
That's it.
questions on 6A through F or H?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
yes,
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Those pass. Now we needed a motion for 6G.
Okay, could I make a motion for 6G with the middle school handbook taken out to be voted separately?
Can we do that? I assume we can.
Yes, you do.
I'll second that.
Any questions on, additional questions on 6G without the middle school?
No questions, but I do just want to make a comment. I'm not thrilled with the valedictorian thing, but I understand that is where things are going, and I know trends in education, that is where it's going. So I'm not super thrilled with that. I understand it.
I agree.
So
I agree.
I just wanted to make that comment before the vote.
I agree. And like you said, the trend is going that way. Being 50 years old, it's hard to change.
And it is fair because the 8th graders coming in will know what the game plan is from day one, whether we like it or not. So,
Would you like it to, can I just ask the question? Would you like to see number 1 valedictorian, number 2 salutatorian, and still summa cum laude recognized?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, so why don't we do that? I mean, we can do whatever we want, right?
we
I mean,
can.
so is there any reason you're not, I mean, I understand that,
I understand the discussion that we had the last time when this came up, and there was, I agree with the concern of somebody maybe not pursuing what they want because they have to be number 1, or they have to be number 2. And
Okay.
I would hate for kids to have that
okay.
in their mind, that I cannot take this course, I must take this course because I have to be number 1 or I have to be number 2.
I just don't like it plays into the everybody gets a cookie
Right.
mentality.
And I think, I disagree with I like this change for the fact that this is the way education is going, and we should stay with the times and be progressive and look at what the colleges are looking at so that we can give as many students as possible advantages. That's why I do like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have no problem giving the summa cum, no, I mean, I definitely want to make that change, that summa
Right.
cum laude is above 4.0. I was just wondering what the concern was, and, I mean,
If we kept the valedictorian and salutatorian in addition, they would still have that competition to be number 1 and 2.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say is, why can't we do the summa cum laude and still do a 1 and 2? It doesn't remove the competition because we're still doing a 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts? What's the negative of doing that?
Yeah, that's what,
I think we sometimes may get into cases of trying to work the system. There is a ton of pressure on our top kids as they get closer and closer to graduation. And, sometimes we're looking at, hundreds and thousands of points difference. And I would hate to see a student not take an unweighted elective
Right.
like orchestra because of the fact that it's only going to carry with it a plain old 4 and not a 4.5. That is my concern.
And I guess I would say, to kind of agree with Kathy, I think it's just unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, the way education is headed. So I do think eventually we're going to have, if not now, at some point we're going to have to catch up with where the colleges are going. So I think it's a good recommendation, and I think it gives an ample amount of time for people to understand and know. So that's what I would say.
so you think phasing it in, is there, because I'm of the thought then,
I mean, I don't have a problem doing it sooner than
that's
that.
what I'm like,
I
I'm
don't necessarily
of
feel
the
like it
thought
needs a
then,
4-year phase
why
in,
don't
but-
we go ahead and just,
Well, I
just-
think we got to be,
I
I
do.
mean,
why don't
people,
we just
freshmen,
do it?
well, freshmen may have gone into their freshman year thinking, this is what my goal is.
Yeah.
So I think with the 8th grade, my kid's going to be the first one that
They won't even
experiences
know
it.
about it maybe,
They-
or
yeah.
whatever, yeah,
It's the new norm for them.
they won't know the
Right.
difference. Okay, that's fine, I just wonder when you both said, which is fine.
I would be curious if we do go with this to see will the data support that? Will kids start taking a more variety of courses as opposed to what they're doing now? Because I would assume if you were on that track to want to do that, the orchestra example you gave, if you're an incoming freshman, you probably wouldn't take orchestra because of that, correct?
Right.
So, okay, I would just be curious to see where that data goes. Will more electives be chosen because
And I
because
do
of
think,
that?
like we talked about when we looked at the course description guide, we have amazing opportunities at our high
Right.
school, more so than most, if not all, area schools. And, the addition of the agricultural pathway at the high school as well, there's so many things that kids can pick from. So this may really open a lot of doors and opportunities
I
for kids.
feel better about it, knowing it's, looking at it as an opportunity instead of everybody's getting a cookie.
Sure.
So, again, I'm not super thrilled, but I could live with it.
Fair enough.
So the motion on the table is for everything but the middle school handbook.
Correct.
Okay.
Any more comments, questions?
No, thanks.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes?
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Those pass. I think we need a motion for
Yes, motion
G-
to approve the middle school handbook.
G Middle School handbooks.
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions?
I would still like to add in,
Ears and tails?
Yes.
Yes, please, the
Yeah,
same as the
yours-
high school, just to be
Yep,
consistent
I already-
with
I already
whatever.
sent that.
ears and
Okay.
tails, and I would also like the ability for parents with prior approval to bring something into their kids.
Okay, got it.
So that wording would change my vote. So what's our wording going to be?
We'll include it just as Deb said.
Well, everybody can agree, I can make a motion to say, and then let the board vote, that we add the I don't even know what the right words would be, the opportunity for parents, grandparents, on special occasions to,
Just, I would perhaps just change it to no outside deliveries. Perhaps you could do that. Would that,
I'm
Change
fine
it?
with. I
That would
just
be-
don't like taking.
so you could do no Uber Eats and DoorDash and all, would that?
I would rather, you know, with Jared not being here, I would rather say without
Prior
prior
approval?
approval,
Okay. Okay,
and then they can obtain prior approval for special occasions.
okay, all right.
so
I mean, if you guys mostly all agree for it.
It's
I'm
a head
fine with
nod
it.
thing again,
Oh.
I think.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you
I was
guys
gonna say, I
don't-
can,
That's fine.
We don't unless, unless there's like, there's a big split, you don't know for sure, we should vote. If not,
Okay, no, that's fine.
we should move forward as is with that, I think Dr. Perkins and.
Okay. So before I vote, that will be in there.
Yep, I'm adding
Parents
it.
still have, okay.
I'm adding it right now.
You're good.
All right.
Yep.
Is there any,
I have one more question. With the, are we going to do anything in reference to,
Bless you.
Bless you.
in reference to wrestling, girls wrestling in the middle school?
I mean, are we having girls wrestling? Is that what you're asking, or?
No.
I believe in some capacity, yeah. I think they're working on staffing as we speak.
Okay. Do we need to add that for sports and stuff in the 8th grade?
Well, it's not, we have to see how that works with Ohio High School, because it's like in that limbo. It's
Right.
honored but not, so I need to look into that. So maybe, I can definitely do that prior to the next board meeting, and we won't be publishing these.
Okay,
So
Okay.
I can write that down
okay.
and double check how that needs to be worded. So I will do that.
Okay, that was it.
anything else? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Zani.
Yes?
That motion passes. Number 7, treasurer's items for donations.
Motion to approve with thanks.
Second.
Yes, we'd like to thank all of the donations, lots of drama club and some.
Wow, that's a huge one for drama.
Yeah, it is. I see that now. And some scoreboard payments. Looks great, thank you. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes?
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Thank you. Item 8, superintendent's items.
So just a few quick things. One, if you haven't seen, we're hosting the first ever Licking County Job Fair, Teacher Job Fair, on Monday. We targeted many, many universities. We have over 120 individuals signed up to come. So we are very excited, as well as our friends in the other county schools. So we're hoping that's going to be an extremely successful event, which comes off of a lot of disappointment from ODE shutting down their site and having a real concern about a candidate shortage. So I think we're going to have a head start. The job fair is actually before almost all university job fairs, so we're getting a pretty good jump start. So
Good,
that
good.
will be Monday, happening at the high school. So I want to share that. Want to let you know we are up to 248 kindergartners already registered, so that is a lot early. So we're hoping they're just coming early. So we'll keep monitoring those numbers. And then also, if you've seen recently our postings going out, we are adding some additional K through 3 literacy staff at the lower grade levels to continue a focus on pushing that early literacy, working with interventions, and trying to make sure we're catching kids early enough before they get to the middle school and high school and they're struggling. So I think it's long overdue, and we're hoping that we're going to see some great impacts on those K through 5 kids, and then hopefully the middle school and high school teachers will feel that as well. And that is it for me tonight.
Do we have any idea of the turnout for the algebra test last week?
I do not. Do you?
Oh, I
have
know,
any?
my kid was there.
Mine was, both of mine were.
And-
Over 100 signed up to come.
Okay.
Actually came, I don't know.
Okay.
And I've been checking my email like a hawk.
I know, me too.
They said it end of the week, so. Cool. Okay, anything else for Dr. Perkins? Okay. Item 9, request to speak on non-agenda items. The Teamsters Local 413, Southwest Licking Education Association, and I think finally we have Mr. Steve Holloway from the Licking County Planning Commission to speak. Mr. Holloway? Yes, sir. I just said the first two fast because I knew they weren't in the room. I apologize for that. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address for the record and.
Steve Holloway. I live at 11047 York Road. I'm a resident of Southwest Licking Schools, past school board member of Southwest Licking. And I'm on the Licking County Planning Commission, which is why I'm here today, kind of give you kind of an update. Some of the information I'm going to give you, you already know. Some of the things I'm going to bring up to you, you don't know. And the reason I'm here is because these are things I think you should. When I was on the Board of Education, it was important to be proactive. It wasn't always popular to be proactive with the taxpayers, but it's very important. As a board, we need to do that. On February 24th, Licking County Planning Commission and MORPSI, Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, we had a briefing in Columbus with all the entities, for the most part, involved to talk about Intel, and I wanted to bring you the highlights of that meeting. Intel is going to bring 3,000 jobs, $405 million in payroll, $20 billion investment. 7,000 construction jobs, 10,000 indirect jobs. Once the operation is completed, it'll represent about half of the GSP, the gross state product in Ohio. Intel has 140 Ohio suppliers currently, and they purchased $87 million from those companies. And we expect a lot more to come on top of that. About Intel, people ask, because we get a lot of companies. I started the industrial park here in Etna Township, and people were concerned about the companies we were going to bring in. Intel for 2022 was voted the best company to work for and the most responsible. So we're getting a pretty good company. Phase 1 commercial production will start in 2025. We're awaiting legislation on the CHIP Act. The state of Ohio kind of cut a bunch of deals in the legislation for taxes and whatnot to bring them here, and we need to get that passed, and I'm sure it's going to. I'm not worried about that. Currently working on permits and pre-construction, which will be eventually 7 buildings. There's 4 issues at the county level that we're looking at, and Intel is too. Intel specifically is looking at workforce development, transportation. County is concerned about housing and transportation, and Intel especially sustainability. Neat fact that, just a side note, somebody came up and said if there was a railroad spur to that site. Most companies, especially at the industrial park, we couldn't get a number of companies because we couldn't get the railroad spur down that far, and so it was important. And what they brought up was that's one of the reasons they picked the site. It did not have a railroad spur. For the quality they need to make this chip, they gotta have 0 vibration in the ground. 0 vibration. So I just thought that was interesting. Workforce development. Intel is pledging $50 million in the next 10 years to Ohio colleges. Probably half of that will go to Ohio State, but the other half's going to go to other colleges, including C-Tech, tech colleges, and small colleges alike. And it would be specifically for the engineering programs. They also are going to be looking to develop a K through 12 talent pipeline. That means that they want to expand the STEM education, teacher externships, which is kind of a shadowing, STEM-focused camps and internships and company engagement.
Kathy,
This is where I,
Yes, I apologize when you started. I should have warned you you had 5 minutes to speak.
Well,
So if,
may I go a little bit longer?
if you could go
It's for your benefit.
next couple minutes.
I'm not here to sound off about
Yes,
something.
so since I didn't tell you, if you could, wrap
Well, I
up.
thought since I called ahead, that I would get more time than just somebody standing up. One of the things we're doing at the county for the township level is I've asked our director to get with the townships to kind of come together as one, to work with the state and Intel. I'd like you to also just consider that same thing with OSBA, have them kind of earn their pay here. Because Northridge, Johnstown, Licking Heights, Southwest Licking, New Albany, you're all involved in this. You're all going to be, you're going to want to expand your STEM education. You're going to need grants and money and that type of thing. And if you kind of go, instead of everybody doing their own thing, I think it's real important if you kind of join forces. And maybe OSBA is a good way to work with that and get with Intel and see what you need to do and see what you can do to get money and expand your programs. And I think that's really important. I'll skip out of transportation since I'm limited time. I think there's some important things there. But housing. Right now, Central Ohio is roughly about 2 million people. Licking County is about 170,000. We're expecting the population to grow to 3 million by 2050. Divide that by, that's 1 million people, divide that by a family of 4, that's 250,000 homes. That's not all here in Licking County, but that's Central Ohio. If you even take a tenth of that, say 25,000 homes, what kind of impact's that going to have on our school district? The state of Ohio is going to be very aggressive to make sure that that Intel and the companies that are coming have a workforce that have homes. I've already talked to Etna Township to prepare. They have redlining now to keep people out. That's, they don't want to see that. I'm talking about low income, high density, that type of thing out of the area. The state of Ohio is going to adopt a green tape development where they're going to make sure that these people can get in and for the housing they need, high density apartments, that type of thing. They're going to pilot diverse lower cost housing, tenant-based rental assistance. They're going to ease regulations. Bottom line is the state of Ohio needs to open up the housing for the workers. And that's something the school board needs to be prepared for. We're a little bit distant, but not as far as what you think. So I wanted to bring all that to your attention, something to start thinking about. You can work with the township, kind of I've already talked to them about this as far as zoning for this type of thing, but as prepare, you're talking about kindergartners, and it's going up. I can't imagine in 2050, which is not that far away, what we may be up against. I mean, land purchases, things like that. And again, that's why I thought about being proactive that was coming out. I cut it short for that, unless you have any questions for me.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. As you continue to get information, we certainly would welcome you back to keep us apprised as to what is going on. I mean, we watch various township meetings and whatnot, but we don't know everything that's going on in the government entities, and I appreciate you coming tonight and spending your time and sharing with us, and I would invite you to come again.
I have one question. The green tape development that the state is working on,
Green tape development, reviews.
reviews, clearly, they're going to be pushing townships and cities and everything for this kind of development. Where is the voice of the schools in that? Do they have any voice of the schools? Because, you can push that development and you can tell, Harrison and Etna that they need to have multifamily units, but if you're not giving any additional funds to the schools and you're not giving any kind of benefit of land or anything to schools, where's our voice on that?
This is what I brought up, is getting together with the other districts. For Southwest Licking to do that on their own would be very difficult.
Right.
But again, I think that's what OSBA is there for. They're there for that type of thing where you could go to them for help. I really believe that this is something that they should help you with, bring it together. You meet with them and see what you got, get a plan of attack. And in that way, they actually have a better ear to the state legislators than you do as a
Well, one would
board,
hope that the
and
state
they can
legislators are
work.
listening to this and understand that they have to protect school districts also.
They need to hear from you.
Yeah,
That it?
that's,
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you for coming in.
Item number 10 says closing item. It doesn't scroll all the way down, so I assume it's adjournment.
Adjournment, it is.
So I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
We are adjourned at 8 p.m.
we got to vote.
Oh, shoot, sorry. Never mind on that.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.